And welcome back. We continue with our coverage and analysis of the ANC's 55th National Conference underway at Nazareth. Got off to a start on the first day today, several hours later. Political analyst Professor Lesiba Teffo joins us now to continue looking at day one of the ANC conference and some of what came out of it. Or maybe let's start with some of what did not come out of it. There would have been expectations on the president's political report. What were your assessments of what he could have said or should have said?
Even before I go to that, let me preface this by saying, for once in a long time, I had my captain speak as a captain, as a man in charge of the country and in charge of his political party. And especially when he rattled towards the end, he spoke authoritatively. And I thought, this is the leader that the country is yearning for. And this is the leader the country had hoped when he took over. And if we were to continue on that trajectory, speaking forcefully, without fear or favor, and using the language that says, we owe it to the people, not to the party, certainly he could achieve more. And I look forward to that. I say kudos to him. He did very well. And I picked up even some people out there saying now the president spoke, regardless of attempts at collapsing the conference, right? And there was a deliberate attempt at that, by the way. But I thought he did extremely well, and he deserves accolades for that. But there are things, typical politician, Matamela Ramaphosa, right? He uses platitudes, but basically he was responding to what people are saying on the ground. Cadre deployment. He's saying, we have started a process of selecting people at branch and what level. Just do away with that system that is called cadre deployment. You cannot modify or transform a Frankenstein. You dismantle it. They are where they are right now because of that, right? But they are using a jargon. Yes, that's fine. But I understand they're moving in the right direction. Again,
would that not require constitutional change?
What constitutional
of
change?
The ANC?
And just a change of the mindset. Remember, the laws are made by man, and man is not made for the laws. If you make them, you can change them if they don't suit you. If they suited you yesterday and today, they are anachronistic. It is within you to change them. And the mood on the ground demands that they stop kleptocracy and promote meritocracy. Regardless of the color of the T-shirt, appoint people if they can do the job.
And I'd like to stay with this theme, Prof, because I'm wondering, part of what we're seeing, the power struggles, the wranglings within the party, as we were speaking earlier on about unity or the lack thereof. Would you put it squarely at that the branches, the manner in which people are progress into position, inculcates the patronage that ultimately, is the stickler for those who believe certain positions ought to be given to certain people? Some people are not deserving of certain positions.
Look, it ought not have done at all. Those who have not been around and perhaps who have not read as much as some of us have done that, and with due respect, I'm saying that, go and look at where affirmative action started. It started in the USA for the benefit of the black man. It was removed from the statute on the instigation of the black man himself, who said, no. We are made to believe that we are incapable and we are second-class citizens. And indeed, they got rid of it. And it was Martin Luther King who said, I look forward to that day. On merit, a black man will be in the State House. And it happened. Barack Obama was there not because he was black, but because on merit. Do away with BEE. Do away with affirmative action. We cannot continue on things that are inimical to economic growth and development. And they deprive other people the opportunities to realize their potential as human beings with equal recognition and status in the society our founding fathers envisaged. Thirdly, go and look at the values that undergird the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. nation building, reconciliation, and social cohesion.
Okay. So perhaps we'll come back to this question of whether or not the party has met its objectives in terms of the political programs and some of what President Ramaphosa spoke about. But were there things that you think the president should have spoken about, particularly, and I think it is in one of the discussion programs or policies that will come under the spotlight at the conference, the issue of migrations. There are bids to try and make some sort of legislative changes, which some critics have suggested would be unconstitutional. The president didn't reflect on this, even though this has been one of the major problems that South Africans have pointed to or have had to contend with.
Yeah, yes, South Africans are contending with that question, and I must concede that Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi is doing the best he can to deal with it. And I would have hoped that the president would strengthen his hand by speaking out on that. It's not about xenophobia. It's not about the foreigners. It's about the management of the borders as they are managed everywhere under the sun. And as long as you don't deal with that, you will continue to hear people on the ground and the ructions coming out and bursting as they often do. All that the people on the ground are saying, it cannot be correct that people walk in and walk out in the manner they do. Control and manage the borders. That's number one. Number two, do uphold the laws of the land. Pitepi, in my culture, thou shalt make sure that your children they eat first before you try next door. The reason why Action SA and PA add into the electoral base of the ANC, they know it, is because of this question. But I don't care about those two. I care more about the people on the ground and indeed what ought to be done, because if you don't deal with that, I see if there is one thing that has got the potential to destabilize the country is the failure to manage the border system. And you already hear memos that even some organizations that ought to not to operate in our country have already infiltrated us because they can walk in and walk out. They build up businesses and take the monies to go and sponsor certain things that ought not to be sponsored at our expense. And the Americans themselves managed to bring it to our attention. And in Natal, as you know, 3-4 weeks ago, some people were arrested.
And how closely related would the management of our borders be to labor laws? Because there's something that Alliance partners said coming into this conference, that they feel that the governing party has kind of lost its way in putting special focus on workers' issues.
Yeah, but well, look, that's one area that I'm always very careful when I get into, because the labor movement sometimes forget that is in core governance. And then when you criticize the government, you are criticizing yourself. You deploy yourself into government, and at the same time you want to pretend that you are not in government. They enjoy very little respect from me, by the way. But sometimes I don't blame them. It has never worked and it will never work, and that's why they have problems they have in the alliance. Okay. You can never be in core governance with Labour.
All right, let's reflect on some issues now. Prof, suspended ANC Secretary General S. Magashule saluting ANC MPs who defied the governing party in Parliament by voting for the adoption of the Section 89 panel report. Magashule was speaking on the sidelines of the ANC's 55th National Conference in Nazareth, Johannesburg.
The ANC itself wanted a panel, like the ANC wanted Zondo Commission. Now, when the panel report comes out, the ANC itself says, no. I salute Comrade Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, I salute Comrade Sisulu, I salute Msebenzi Zwane Supra Mahumapelo. And I think mere intimidation will never intimidate thousands and thousands of ANC members like us. We know this organization, we are the children of this organization, we have struggled. We're not going to be pushed out by those who joined the ANC today.
Mr. Magashule, you look at the run-up to this conference, former President Jacob Zuma saying that delegates to this conference should reject the political report, reject the financial report, and reject the organizational report. If these reports are rejected, what then becomes of the organization? 110
years of the African National Congress. This is where the ANC is, because the aim of white monopoly, the aim of the forces of reaction is to actually ensure that the ANC die. And it is assisted by those who camouflaged in ANC colors, by those who can actually sing slogans, by those who can actually be seen to be fighting corruption. Remember, Lula was charged with corruption and Lula is back as president. So the ANC at this moment, I'm calling upon the delegates not to accept anything which is an ANC. They know the history of the African National Congress, and the branches of the ANC will talk.
Mr. Magashule, you are the custodian of the African National Congress. Even though you are suspended, you are the Secretary General. Should you not be enforcing party leaders and party members of parliament to toe the party line instead of voting against the party line?
Well, if leaders of the ANC themselves, as the highest level, the National Executive Committee, when they say certain things, where is Pravin Gordhan, where is Derek Harakom, were they charged? When they voted in parliament, where was the party line? 37 of them, were they charged? What inconsistencies? ANC members must not accept all these nonsensical things. And if the ANC members are charged, so what? What will happen? And if they wanted to charge Comrade Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, a principal leader, you know, Comrade Nkosazana was the deputy to Comrade Steve Biko. And when all these guys were not there, these young guys who come now and they were elected on a slate during 2017, and they regard themselves as revolutionaries. What type of revolutionaries, peacetime revolutionaries are this?
How should members of the party vote in this conference? Should they vote for Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Zweli Mkhize, or Cyril Ramaphosa?
The branches of the ANC must decide. If they want the African National Congress to win 2024 elections, the branches of the ANC must not must not do what they have actually done in 2017. They must elect leaders they trust, leaders with struggle credentials, leaders who can actually take the ANC out of this quagmire, leaders who are principled, leaders who understand organizational processes, leaders who are not going to be bought to sell ESCOM and SAA, collapse state-owned enterprises, leaders who care about the poor of our people, leaders who actually care about blacks and Africans in particular, and leaders who care about all the Democrats in South Africa as a non-racial organization. So I'm calling upon leaders of the ANC and branches of the ANC to seriously apply their minds. Otherwise, you can see throughout the country the ANC is going. The base of the ANC is being eroded.
All right, we continue on conversation now with Professor Lesiba Teffo about the ANC's 55th National Conference. Perhaps just taking from that discussion, we were talking earlier on in the week about ethical leadership. There's the issue that we raised earlier on about lawlessness. We've seen the courts get more and more involved in the business of running the ANC, discipline within the ANC. Earlier on in the week, or just a few days ago, yesterday or today, it was confirmed that President Jacob Zuma is pursuing private prosecution against the president. Ace Magashule saying at that very interview earlier on that President Ramaphosa ought to step aside. How does this bode for the ANC if it is going to not only recapture discipline within the party, but confidence from South Africans that it can get its business in order?
If I may, please, I'll get to that question. But there's something that I find interesting said by Ace Magashule. There is this principle: act according to that maxim that you can at the same time will it to become a universal law. Whether in your own favor or that of another, never use the other as a means, but always as an end. Why am I saying this? It cannot be him. It cannot be Nkosazana crying foul. Go and look at the history. It was Nkosazana who said, once the ANC takes a position, you cannot go against it. You can tweet that statement, you'll get it there. She said that at the time when Jacob Zuma was in charge. Today, she's the one who's saying, you can act as per your conscience, not as per the party discipline. So whatever principle that you take, you must make sure that when it is applied to you, you can embrace it. So I just want to leave it at that. That's where the problems lies in the AC, inconsistency of the applications of the law. Because God had said it was wrong, right, to take action against people who act on conscience. The same was said by Mutlante, but they are quiet today. It's almost like you want to go for Nkosazana. Nkosazana said the right thing, and she did the right thing, but the right thing was done by the wrong person, given what she said yesterday. But let's come back to the main question, Tsepi. It's about last night.
So, yes, I was just talking about how can the ANC infuse confidence, not only within its membership, but the people of South Africa, they can get its houses in order, given the fact that we've seen Ace Magashule saying President Ramaphosa needs to step aside because he's facing private prosecution from former President Jacob Zuma. And I was pointed to the fact that the courts are being called upon repeatedly to intervene in what seems to be ostensibly ANC business.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And you know what I like about the ANC is that they would even go on to make a policy position, and then they fight over it in terms of interpretation. Now they want to invite the court to say, but what does step aside mean? Why didn't you think it through prior to taking it as a policy position? How many times have they gone to court on matters of their own? Please spare the court interference in the politics of the ANC, because ultimately they will lose legitimacy. But what was the thinking last night when this letter was served on the president? And so, in my own thinking, it was like, okay, now we have charged you like other people, step aside, right? But the legal question that is likely to be raised and is being raised, that nolle prosequi, and then you can go private prosecution on your own, which is doing with Downer and so. But does it affect Ramaphosa? It doesn't say so. But supposing you want to, and there is no clarity, then you must still go to court so that the court can pronounce definitively that indeed it accommodates him. By the time you reach that stage, the conference shall have passed. And the Prime Minister of the ANC, who is Gwede Mantashe, is managing things very well. Strategically and tactically, he's doing well. You pause, we go to court to check if indeed that is correct. That would be next week or after 2 months. But by Sunday, the elections results shall have been pronounced. That would be inconsequential. That would be academic following that. The strategy was, we have charged you, you have been charged, therefore you cannot contest.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights, Professor Lesiba Teffo, also sharing his views on the ANC's 55th National Policy Conference. Of course, day one occurred today with much disruptions. We continue looking at some of what came out of this. This is The Globe. Do stay with us, don't go away.